never thought I would be talking about this word in the context of policing, but can someone explain the diaphragm clause of the chokehold ban and what all the controversy is about? We basically, we want to understand, in lieu of what is now these ban techniques, what you think is going to be available to the police to make arrests, and what additional training. I mean, we're talking about money all the time here, but this is money that is really, I mean, in some ways going to save everyone money, because when there's trouble and during an arrest, someone gets hurt. At the end of the day, people's lives are lost, and money is, lawsuits, settlements, etc. So can you tell us some of the, again, what the law is about, and what you, by enacting this law, I know it's a city law, and there's 18, unions that are fighting it, but tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Actually, before we go into the city, we'll defer to our state colleagues who got there first.
Yeah, okay. The state passed the law first, Valerie, and then the city will just follow up. So thank you, Ben. But we were all thinking of the same things at close to the same time. Again, like bail, I think there's a lot of misinformation about this out there. So the new law establishes the offense of aggravated strangulation, which is committed when a peace officer commits the offense of criminal obstruction of breathing or blood strangulation. Now, this is an offense that is defined as intentional pressure being applied to the throat or neck. Intentional. And the fact is, it's always been against New York Police Department rules and regulations now for decades. And yet it was still being used on a number of quite infamous cases. And that's why it became called sort of the diaphragm clause, because you're cutting off oxygen through the diaphragm. It doesn't put police at risk of penalty unless there is criminal evidence of the misapplication and intentional use of a chokehold. All right? And so the police have been trained not to use it for years. They've known not to use it for years. It can only be a penalty if they, in fact, are using it intentionally. Officers have every other mechanism available to them to make an arrest, and they are trained on those models, not even trained on this, to arrest people without using chokeholds, without putting their lives at risk. The law just prohibits the intentional act of applying pressure around the throat of the individual. They can still grapple with someone if they need to, utilize a taser on the person if they need to, have multiple police officers surrounding a person to render them able to be, arrested and handcuffed. And if the pressures accidentally applied to the throat or neck, that does not fall under this law. And I think there's some misperception out there that we are limiting our police officers' ability to do their jobs and arrest people. I don't believe that is the case. We are putting in now state and city law that they cannot use this model. They have not been trained to use it. They have been trained to be able to carry out arrests in any number of ways that we did not change the laws on. And the reason we all care about this so much, Valerie, is you already said it. People have ended up being killed on video where much of the country has risen up in shock and horror. Now that recent case was obviously not in New York, but we have had our own cases here in New York too frequently. And so this was just, we're going to clarify, there's no gray area here. These are not the techniques our police are trained in or supposed to be using.